Rent Stabilization and Tenant Protection Ordinances. Need assistance? If you have any questions or need help, contact Lorena Cárdenas, Housing Specialist, at 323-773-5143, extension 299, or email lcardenas@cityofcudahyca.gov. Rent Stabilization and Tenant Protection Ordinances. On June 6, 2023, the City of Cudahy adopted Ordinance Number 736 and 737, adding Chapter 5.13, Rent Stabilization, and Chapter 5.14, Tenant Protections. These chapters are intended to regulate maximum annual rent increases than those set forth in state law, and regulate justifiable grounds for eviction and expand tenant protections from those provided by the state. Rent stabilization highlights: permitted rent increases, covered units, exemptions, capital improvement pass-through, fair return petition process, rental unit registration. Permitted rent increases limits annual rent increase for covered rental units by no more than the change of CIP, or 3%, whichever is lower. Only one increase in any 12-month period with a 30-day written notice. The landlord may set the initial rent for new tenancies pursuant to state law. Covered units, exemptions. This applies to all residential rental units, except those expressly exempt, including, but not limited to, units built after February 1st, 1995, single-family homes and condominiums, properties with up to 2 units that are owner-occupied. Does not apply to commercial properties. Capital improvement pass-through. Landlords may pass through up to 50% of eligible capital improvement cost. Eligible pass-through capital improvement costs include, but are not limited to, the replacement of electrical and plumbing systems that require a building permit. Pass-through charge shall not exceed 5% of the tenant's rent. Landlords must submit an application to the city and written notice to tenants prior to the commencement of any capital improvement pass-through charge. Landlord Fair Return Petition Process. The ordinance establishes a process for a landlord to request a fair return rent adjustment. The landlord has a right to a fair and reasonable return. The landlord bears the burden of proof. The maximum increase that may be approved by the department cannot exceed 10%. The landlord must provide written notice to tenants prior to changing an approved increase. Factors to be considered by the department: changes in CPI, rent increase history, and property taxes, physical condition of property, capital improvements, repairs, and maintenance, increases and decreases of housing services, rental agreement, landlord's compliance with the ordinance. Rental unit registration. Under the City of Cudahy Municipal Code, a landlord is required to register all rental units annually. Landlords must provide rent amount and tenancy information for every rental unit on a form provided by the City of Cudahy. This information shall be submitted annually by July 1st. Registration is complete only when all required property, landlord, tenancy, and rent amount information is provided. Tenant protection highlights: for-cause evictions, no-fault evictions, relocation assistance, retaliatory eviction, and anti-harassment. For-cause evictions. A landlord is permitted to terminate tenancy for the following circumstances: the failure to pay rent, tenant violation of material term of a rental agreement, illegal purpose or use of a unit, the failure to sign a similar lease, assignment or sublet in violation of the lease, refusing access for necessary repairs after notice, resident manager failure to vacate after the termination of employment, the failure to vacate after providing landlord notice of intent to terminate the lease. No-fault evictions. A landlord is permitted to terminate a tenancy under the following circumstances: demolition of the rental unit, permanent withdrawal of the rental unit from the rental market pursuant to state law, the use by the landlord or landlord's family as the primary residence. Relocation assistance. If no-fault eviction, the landlord must provide tenants relocation assistance equal to 3 times the rent in effect at the time of the termination notice, 1 additional month's rent for certain qualified tenants. Note: landlords must provide temporary relocation assistance for tenants who are temporarily displaced due to repairs, rehabilitation, and health and safety concerns. Retaliatory eviction and anti-harassment. Landlords and agents cannot fail to provide services that violate laws or lease in bad faith, fail to do repairs, fail to accept rent, ask for information that violates their right to privacy, abuse the right to access the unit, try to influence tenants to vacate through misrepresentation or intimidation, threaten the tenant with physical harm or language to induce fear or provoke violence, violate discrimination laws, interfere with rights of tenant to organize. Want to know more? Visit our website at cityofcudahy.ca.gov/464/housing.